among the Republican Party. We know that the fundraiser today is being co-hosted by two former Georgia United States senators, both Republican, David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler. Now, these are both Republicans who were defeated by Democrats within the last couple of election cycles, and now in Georgia we see for the first time in really just about a generation, we have two Democratic U.S. senators representing Georgia on Capitol Hill. At the same time, Governor Brian Kemp, arguably one of the most popular Republican governors in recent memory, ranking right up with his predecessor Nathan Deal, Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, who gained a very significant national profile when he testified before the House Select Committee on the January 6, 2020 or 2021 deadly Capitol Hill riot, Attorney General Chris Carr, both of whom Raffensperger and Carr will likely be gubernatorial candidates here in just a couple of years in Georgia. Those officials are not attending today's fundraiser. We're not invited. So, and Kemp, Raffensperger, and Carr have kind of been seen as on the other side of the political aisle as Donald Trump, whereas Kelly Loeffler, David Perdue, both of whom were heavily endorsed by then President Trump, and they're also widely considered to be looking at either making another gubernatorial run or another U.S. Senate run in 2026, along with Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones, who is a very, very diligent supporter of Donald Trump. So what we're seeing today is really setting up what we're going to see in 2026 and beyond.
Yeah, and I will say that we are expecting some comments from the former president once he's kind of settled, once he has an opportunity, and obviously we're going to stream that for you live. We also have political reporter Doug Reardon following the motorcade as well. And, there is an undisclosed stop that the former president is expected to make. We don't know where it is. That's why, partly why Doug is following the motorcade. And it'll be interesting to see what the former president has to say about a number of topics, but including the prosecution of himself and his allies for alleged interference in the 2020 election, and that prosecution being led by Fulton County DA Fani Willis.
And, of course, President Trump's attorneys and the attorneys representing the 13 other remaining co-defendants in this historic indictment here in Atlanta and Fulton County are continuing to argue that the former president's statements, his allegations about a stolen 2020 election here in Fulton County, here in Georgia, that have largely been disproven, are continuing to fall under the protection of free speech as defined by the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. Last week, Fulton County Superior Court Judge Scott McAfee, who is overseeing this massively historic and unprecedented trial, rejected arguments from the former president and his attorneys that Trump's comments do fall under politically protected or protected political free speech. Earlier this week, the former president's attorneys and the other remaining co-defendants filed an appeal to McAfee's ruling. So this is an ongoing issue. Right,
very much so. And, we're just waiting for former president to kind of, to exit and to actually make a few remarks. Obviously, we're going to stream that for you live. But, we're talking about the case against the former president here in Fulton County. Like you said, it's been kind of an ongoing battle back and forth between essentially the Fulton County DA, Fani Willis, and the Trump camp. And like you say, the Georgia Court of Appeals, the State Court of Appeals, will be the case is before them, and they'll be determining whether, in fact, the charges will stand or whether they'll be dropped, whether, in fact, Ms. Willis will stay on the case, or whether she'll be removed. Obviously, like you said, Fulton County Superior Court Judge Scott McAfee ruled that she would stay in place, but he also agreed to allow his own decision to be reviewed by the Court of Appeals. So that's kind of the next step. But it seems, according to many analysts, that this is kind of all meant to delay the trial so that it does not negatively impact the chances of a win for the former president. So
we are seeing, as you're seeing on the live stream with us, the door to the former president's very large and very luxurious jet airliner is open, and we're waiting on him to exit. But we are expecting some comments. The former president has not been shy about making comments on the record about the judicial process, and you can make the argument very easily that every time there is a new indictment, every time there is a new allegation, it only galvanizes the 45th President of the United States and his supporters into even more fervent dedication. And this is the first election since 1956 to feature a rematch of a presidential contest 4 years earlier. In 1952, Dwight D. Eisenhower, Republican, faced Democrat Adlai Stevenson in the 1952 presidential election. Of course, 4 years later, the incumbent President Eisenhower again faced a challenge from Democrat Adlai Stevenson with the same result. This is whoever wins our 2024 presidential election will not be allowed to run in 2028. So 2028, we're seeing a brand new, completely open presidential contest, as we will be seeing 2 years prior in 2026, when Georgia's governor's race will be wide open. Brian Kemp will not be allowed, constitutionally is not allowed to run for a third term, so we will see a wide open governor's race in Georgia 2 years from now, and a wide open national political presidential race 4 years from now. And all of this is just really showcasing how important Georgia is. It is a battleground state. We have not been shy about saying that whoever wins Georgia will win the Oval Office, not only this year, but 4 years from now.
So what's happening today is really a high-dollar fundraiser. And like you said, this is a must-win state for the former president. So I guess my question for you, Tim, because you have so much, you have so much knowledge of the political landscape here in Georgia. Is this fundraiser just as much about rallying for support as it is kind of raising money for the campaign?
I would say it's kind of equally both, Joy, but we all know the former president is facing a number of huge, significant legal bills and judgments. He needs money to run his campaign, and I believe we are seeing him exit the
Yes, and I'm bringing up the
stairs.
volume. Listen to that reaction from the crowd. I mean, you can hear the support without even seeing it. You can just hear, and obviously people have different opinions against, about for or against, the former president. But there is no denying he has a very strong base of support, including here in Georgia.
That is quite the reception that he's getting. And just circling back to what we were talking about, his Atlanta appearance. This is a private fundraiser. It is not a political rally that he has attended in the past. This is about raising a significant amount of cash to continue not only his re-election campaign or for his election campaign, but also to face the just overwhelming amount of debt that he is facing among the numerous felony charges across the country that he's facing.
And it looks like he's speaking to the supporters. Just kind of seeing if we can hear anything. So the background noise obviously is coming from Hartsfield-Jackson, and I want to just keep a little bit of that audio up so that if we can't hear anything from the president, we will. But in the meantime, Tim, look, I mean, you hear that, you hear the crowd.
Sure, donning the red Make America Great cap that has become so much of a signature not only of his presidency, his campaign back in 2016, and his attempts to become only the second former president to have ever lost a re-election bid and then regain the Oval Office 4 years later. The only other American president to ever do that was Grover Cleveland in the late 19th century. I'm not going to quote the dates right off the top of my head, but Donald Trump, also the first American president in history to be impeached twice, once after he left office. The only president in the 21st century to be impeached, becoming only the third, the first being Andrew Johnson in the 19th century, Bill Clinton in the late 20th century, and Donald Trump in the 21st century. His candidacy, his campaign is just full of historic American firsts that we've never seen in political history before, and we will not ever see again. I think that's a fair statement.
And let's not forget the first to face criminal charges and have a mugshot taken right here in Fulton County.
Have a mugshot right here in Fulton County. And also, something else to keep in mind, this fundraiser today is being held only days before his criminal trial begins next Monday in Manhattan, in New York. Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg is the district attorney that is bringing criminal charges against Donald Trump. He was the first one to do so. The first ever criminal trial of an ex-president begins Monday in Manhattan, in New York. And this is only a few days prior to that. I can't imagine that the former president won't bring this up when he's making remarks at his fundraiser today, attempting to just galvanize support. But everything we're seeing now is truly historic and has never happened before in American political history.
Yeah, and and you're bringing up the criminal case against him in New York, and obviously I think our viewers here know quite well what's happening with the criminal case here in Fulton County, and then another in federal court in D.C. Again related to alleged election interference, and then there's the documents mishandling case,
in Mar-a-Lago, Florida, as I recall.
So, but like you say, Tim, I mean, it seems that the criminal prosecutions and even the civil cases against the former president have really kind of made his support that much stronger.
I don't think there's any other explanation for it, Joy, because if you think about the number of charges, the number of cases, the sheer amount of negativity that has been thrown and charged at the former president, and yet he's still in the race. He was always seemingly the presumptive Republican nominee for 2024. None of the primary campaigns that he was in were even close to being Republican debate among the other GOP presidential hopefuls. He didn't even show up, and yet here he is having overwhelmingly clinched the Republican nomination, the first ever candidate facing criminal charges. He may be the first ever presidential candidate to have ever been convicted in a criminal trial, depending on what happens over the next 2 months in New York regarding the record keeping and the alleged attempts to cover up hush money payments to an adult film actress. So, 2 months from now, we may be saying Donald Trump found guilty of criminal misconduct in New York, and yet he is still on the ballot. It's unprecedented what we're seeing.
It is, and there's a very real possibility he may also become the first president facing criminal prosecution.
He very well may
president.
be, depending on what happens with Special Prosecutor Jack Smith's federal indictment in Washington, D.C. We all know that Fulton County DA Bonnie Willis is adamant in her efforts to place Donald Trump on trial in August here in Atlanta, well before the November 2024 election. Fulton County Superior Court Judge Scott McAfee has not set a trial date as of yet, as we see the former president seemingly making his way to the motorcade at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport and greeting his supporters. But who knows what will happen between now and November of this year in what is an election process unlike ever before.
So we're just watching live here and expecting the former president to... Let's see if we can listen.
here, I have no idea. Oh, you mean like? Oh, you mean where he speaks? So he's about 50 feet to my right. So they had an area where they wanted to have him speak to the press. So we were on a riser initially, but then there's another area that's cordoned off. If you look at my shot, I'm gonna widen out.
All right, so just letting you know, we're just watching live as the former president is addressing, addressing the crowd here at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, and he's arrived ahead of a fundraiser. And we're working to get you some audio so that you can actually listen to what he's saying. But we're going to follow this as his motorcade leaves the airport, and he is making a stop at an undisclosed location, but. We do know this is for a high-dollar fundraiser, and that Georgia is a must-win state for the former president. So this is something that we're watching very closely, and clearly he's got a lot of people very excited to come and see him that were lined up just to greet him there today. Tim,
if you are in the orbit of Donald John Trump, it's very, very hard to get out. He exudes He elicits a tremendous amount of loyalty from his followers. And I think, obviously, there has been a lot of negativity regarding his candidacy in 2016, his unprecedented upset of someone who was the presumptive next occupant of the Oval Office, Democrat Hillary Clinton in 2016. Donald Trump, no political experience, never run for anything before 2016, all of a sudden ascending to the most powerful elected office in the world. In 2016, a lot of resentment, a lot of hatred was generated by that upset 8 years ago. Then the pandemic hits. I honestly feel that had the COVID-19 pandemic not struck the United States and the world, we wouldn't be having.
I think we can actually hear him now.
Every legal scholar, everybody from the Democrats to Republicans, they wanted to bring it back for 53 years. Bring it back to the states. I did that, and now each individual state, they're all working it out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to promote him. I'm Brian Jackson. I'm here running for Congress, District 3, and he's going to be in Georgia. And he's going to be a big-time politician, and he loves our country, and he loves Georgia.
Can we talk about your poll numbers, Mr.
Can we
President?
ask you, how do you feel about Bonnie Willis staying on your case?
Well, she shouldn't be on our case. She's been totally discredited. It's shocking that she's on our case. Her lover was thrown off the case, and she should be thrown off with it. Bonnie Willis did this to get vacations. I mean, you take a look at the kind of money. And by the way, she never paid him back in cash. And if she did, she's got a bigger problem because you can't do that. That's real. She said she took campaign cash and paid him back. You're not allowed to do that. So either way, that's a crime. She's a criminal. So Bonnie Willis has been totally discredited. That case should end, and I think it's a big insult to Georgia that the case is going forward. I don't know if it's going forward. Nobody knows that. But if it does go forward, it's a big insult to Georgia. She is a corrupt individual. He was corrupt. She was corrupt. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. And I suspect that case is going to be terminated because it has absolutely no credibility.
Hey, Mr. President, let's talk about the polling numbers nationally. You're just crushing Biden. It continues to go up. Thoughts on that?
You just said, I'm crushing Biden in the polls. That's true. I appreciate that question. Thank you. Brian, thank you very much. We are doing great in the polls. We have a campaign because they have no policy. People are destroying our country. They're coming in by the millions and millions and millions. They have no policies that are good. Between Afghanistan, high taxes, big inflation, everything they do is bad. They want to quadruple everyone's taxes. There's no way that a man like this should be even allowed in government. As far as I'm concerned, he's a criminal. And what he's doing with this weaponry of the Justice Department, every single trial that you read about and that you report about, and generally fairly, every one of these trials is run by the DOJ and the White House. Every single one, including Fonnie, because her lover spent 8 hours. I think her lover Wade spent 8 hours at least on numerous occasions each day working and coordinating with the White House. How do we hurt Trump so that maybe Biden can eke out a victory? I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think the people are going to stand for it. I'm sure the people aren't going to stand for it. These people have weaponized government. They've weaponized the Justice Department. They've done something that nobody has ever done before in this country. It's done a lot in third world countries and banana republics, never in this country. And so far, based on the polls that came out today and over the last fairly long period of time, if you look back over the last 4 or 5 months, I'm leading every single poll, and I'm leading them by a lot. We are a nation in decline. Biden is the worst president in the history of our country. He's corrupt and he's incompetent. He can't put two sentences together, and I think we're going to have a tremendous victory. I predict that November 5th will go down as the most important day in the history of our country. That's Election Day. It's going to be the most important day and moment in the history of our country. We're going to close up our borders, and we're taking all of the criminals out, because many of the people that came in, they came from jails, they came from insane asylums and mental institutions, many terrorists, many drug dealers at the highest level. They're all coming into our country. I predict that November 5th, it's all going to turn around. We're going to get our country back. This incompetent man that's president, he's a terrible person. He's a terrible president. He's a Manchurian candidate if you look at him, because he gets money from everybody. He's a Manchurian candidate. I predict that Biden is going to be gone. It's 6 months now. That's all we have. But 6 months is a long time, because the damage he can do in 6 months, he's done more damage than the 10 worst presidents in the history of our country. There has never been anybody that's damaged our country like crooked Joe Biden. So I predict November 5th, the most important day in the history of our country, and it's going to be Christian Visibility Day. Christian Visibility Day. Christians are going to come out and they're going to vote like never before. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Doctor,
traveling press.
all right. Yeah, I wanted.
So you are watching live now as motorcade makes its way from Hartsfield-Jackson into the city, and we will be making stops at undisclosed locations. This is a high-dollar fundraiser in Georgia. You know, a must-win state for the former president. We are going to have continuing coverage with reports at noon, 3 p.m., 4 p.m., 5 p.m., all of our regular televised newscasts, but also we're going to follow the latest here on our Atlanta News First Plus stream. And you can get updates sent right to your phone by downloading our free Atlanta News First mobile news app. Have a great day.